In the 19th century, cocaine tampons were a thing. Toward the end of the 19th century, cocaine was regarded as a valid treatment for gynecological illnesses, so women were prescribed cocaine tampons. Catherine the Great had an interesting love life, filled with many courtiers. She even appointed official foot ticklers who would pleasure her by tickling her feet while telling salacious stories or singing songs. The Borgia family, notorious for their corrupt influence during the Renaissance, indulged in various immoral acts. Pope Alexander VI, a Borgia patriarch, reportedly held orgies in the Vatican and fathered several illegitimate children. Arthur C. Whitaker, the mayor of Bridgeton, New Jersey, during the 1910s, had a unique approach to discipline. He had an automated spanking machine installed at City Hall and sentenced young offenders to it instead of sending them to reformatory schools. Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt, was known for her intelligence, beauty, and political acumen, but she was also infamous for her unusual seduction methods. Legend has it that Cleopatra used a special love potion made from crocodile dung and honey. This concoction was believed to enhance sexual prowess and was used to seduce powerful men, including Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. The mixture was applied to her body as a perfume, its pungent odor masked by exotic spices. Cleopatra's allure was so potent that both men and women were captivated by her, and she used this to solidify her power. Although the effectiveness of her love potion is questionable, Cleopatra's seductive reputation lives on. Casanova's condom. Giacomo Casanova, the legendary Italian lover, was known for his many romantic escapades. However, he was also one of the earliest advocates of safe sex. Casanova often used condoms, which at the time were made from sheep intestines and tied with a ribbon at the base. He would meticulously wash and reuse them, storing his protection in a small, ornate case. These early condoms were far from foolproof, but they were Casanova's way of avoiding unwanted pregnancies and sexually transmitted infections. His carefulness with contraception shows that even in the 18th century, some people were thinking ahead about the consequences of their passionate encounters. The Romans were known for their grand feasts and elaborate social gatherings, but some of their parties took a dark and lascivious turn. Roman orgies were infamous, often involving excessive drinking, indulgent eating, and uninhibited sexual activities. These events were not just for pleasure, but also served as displays of power and wealth. Attendees ranged from slaves to the elite, all participating in the debauchery. The Emperor Nero was particularly notorious for hosting such events, where anything and everything was permissible. The orgies symbolized the excess and moral decay of the Roman Empire, offering a stark contrast to its image as a bastion of civilization. The Victorian era was known for its prudish attitudes towards sex, yet it also saw the invention of bizarre devices meant to curb sexual desires, particularly masturbation. For men, this included metal rings with sharp teeth that would cause pain if an erection occurred. For women, chastity belts with intricate locks were used to prevent any form of sexual stimulation. These devices were thought to maintain purity and prevent the so-called moral decay associated with masturbation. Ironically, the era's obsession with repressing sexual urges only led to the creation of more inventive and often cruel methods of control, highlighting the complexities of Victorian sexuality. Catherine de Médicis' dildo. Catherine de Médicis, the Queen of France in the 16th century, had a secret to maintaining her sexual satisfaction. Despite being married to Henry II, Catherine was rumored to have used a dildo made of ivory and leather. This device, known as a go de miché, was imported from Italy and was a closely guarded secret in the French court. Catherine's use of such a device reflects the lengths to which even royalty would go to satisfy their desires discreetly. The existence of such items also suggests that sexual aids have been around for centuries, even if their use was shrouded in secrecy. King Edward II's love chair. King Edward VII of England, known as Bertie, was infamous for his voracious sexual appetite. He frequented high-class brothels and had numerous mistresses. To accommodate his large frame and enhance his sexual experiences, Edward commissioned a custom-made love chair that allowed him to engage in sexual activities without exerting too much effort. The chair, designed by a French craftsman, featured various supports and straps, making it a versatile piece of furniture for the king's many encounters. Edward's love chair became a symbol of his decadent lifestyle, embodying the excesses of the British aristocracy during the late 19th century. In medieval Europe, love potions were a popular but dangerous way to attract a lover. These potions often contained ingredients like menstrual blood, ground animal bones, and herbs believed to have aphrodisiac properties. Women would secretly add these concoctions to a man's food or drink, hoping to win his affection. However, these potions were not without risks. They could cause severe illness or even death if improperly prepared. Despite the potential dangers, love potions were a testament to the lengths people would go to for love, reflecting the superstitions and desperate desires of the time. Marie Antoinette's erotic library. Marie Antoinette, the last queen of France before the Revolution, was known for her lavish lifestyle, but few knew about her private collection of erotic literature. Hidden within the walls of her private chambers was a small library filled with books that explored various sexual themes and fantasies. These books, considered scandalous at the time, were a secret indulgence for the queen, who was otherwise trapped in the rigid protocols of the French court. Marie Antoinette's collection reveals a side of her that contrasted sharply with her public image, offering a glimpse into the hidden desires of one of history's most famous queens. Ancient Greek pederasty. In ancient Greece, pederasty was a socially accepted practice where adult men formed erotic relationships with adolescent boys. These relationships were often seen as educational, with the older man mentoring the younger in the ways of the world, including sexual matters. While it might seem shocking by today's standards, pederasty was woven into the fabric of Greek society, influencing art, literature, and philosophy. The practice was not without its critics, even in ancient times, but it persisted as a norm in many Greek city-states, highlighting the vastly different sexual mores of the ancient world. Victorian-era brothels. During the Victorian era, while public morality was rigidly enforced, brothels flourished in cities like London. These establishments catered to all social classes, from the poor to the aristocracy. Some brothels were infamous for their themed rooms, where clients could indulge in various fetishes and fantasies. Despite the outward appearance of propriety, Victorian society had a hidden underworld of sexual exploration. The contrast between public morality and private vice was stark, as the same men who preached about family values were often the most frequent visitors to these houses of ill repute. The infamous Hellfire Club. In 18th century England, the Hellfire Club was a secret society of elite men who indulged in debauchery and blasphemy. Founded by Sir Francis Dashwood, the club held meetings in an underground cave system where members would engage in orgies, mock religious rituals, and drink heavily. Women, often referred to as nuns, were brought in to participate in these wild events. The Hellfire Club was notorious for its outrageous behavior, and while it eventually disbanded, its legacy of libertinism and scandal remains a dark chapter in the history of British aristocracy. Pompeii's erotic art. When the ancient city of Pompeii was excavated, archaeologists were shocked to discover explicit erotic art on the walls of homes and public buildings. These images depicted various sexual acts, some involving mythological figures, others just everyday people. In addition to the art, numerous phallic symbols were found, often used as good luck charms or decorations. The people of Pompeii had a remarkably open attitude towards sex, viewing it as a natural part of life. The discovery of this art challenged modern perceptions of ancient societies, revealing a culture far more permissive than previously thought. The syphilis outbreak in Renaissance Europe. During the Renaissance, Europe was ravaged by a syphilis outbreak that was believed to have been brought back by Christopher Columbus's crew from the New World. The disease spread rapidly, especially among the upper classes who were notorious for their promiscuity. Treatments for syphilis were as dangerous as the disease itself, often involving mercury, which led to severe poisoning. The outbreak became so widespread that it influenced art, literature, and even fashion, as people tried to hide the disfiguring symptoms. Syphilis became known as the Great Pox, a reminder of the dangers of unchecked sexual behavior in an era of exploration and excess. Emperor Nero's public sex shows. Roman Emperor Nero was infamous for his cruelty and decadence, but few acts were as shocking as his public sex shows. Nero would forcefully recruit men and women, both free and enslaved, to participate in these staged performances, which he often joined. These events were held in public venues, where the audience would watch as Nero and his participants engaged in acts that were both explicit and humiliating. Nero's reign is remembered as one of the most morally corrupt in Roman history, with his public displays of sexual excess symbolizing the empire's broader decline. The Georgian era's prostitution boom. In 18th century England, particularly in London, prostitution became a booming industry. The Georgian era was marked by a stark divide between rich and poor, with many women turning to sex work out of economic necessity. Brothels ranged from luxurious establishments for the wealthy to grim street corners for the destitute. The Covent Garden Ladies, a directory of prostitutes, was published and widely read by men seeking the services of these women. The proliferation of prostitution in this period reflected the social inequalities of the time, as well as the hypocrisy of a society that publicly condemned but privately indulged in vice. Rasputin's sexual mysticism. Grigory Rasputin, the Russian mystic who gained immense influence over Tsar Nicholas II's family, was known for his debauched lifestyle. Despite his holy image, Rasputin believed that to be truly close to God, one had to first sin, and he indulged in excessive drinking and promiscuity. He was rumored to have had sexual relations with many women, including members of the Russian nobility. Rasputin's sexual exploits were as legendary as his mysticism, and they contributed to his downfall. His belief that carnal sin brought him closer to purity created a strange contradiction in the man revered and reviled by so many. Marquis de Sade's prison orgies. The Marquis de Sade, from whom the term sadism is derived, was infamous for his sexual perversions and violent fantasies. While imprisoned in the Bastille, Sade organized orgies with other inmates, using whatever means he could to satisfy his twisted desires. He wrote numerous explicit novels while in prison, exploring themes of extreme violence and sexual dominance. His libertine philosophy, which embraced cruelty and excess, shocked his contemporaries and led to his repeated imprisonment. The Marquis's life was a testament to the darker side of human nature, with his writings and actions leaving a notorious legacy in the history of erotic literature. Pope Joan, the female pope myth. In the 9th century, a scandalous story emerged about Pope Joan, a woman who allegedly disguised herself as a man and became pope. According to the legend, she was extremely intelligent and well-versed in theology, rising through the ranks of the church. However, her secret was revealed when she became pregnant and gave birth during a public procession. Although historians dispute the veracity of this tale, it became a symbol of the church's strict gender roles and the risks women faced if they tried to challenge them. The story of Pope Joan remains one of the most salacious myths in church history. Japanese pillow books. In ancient Japan, aristocrats kept pillow books, which were illustrated manuals of sexual positions and techniques. These books were often given to newlyweds as instructional guides for their wedding night. The art depicted in these books was explicit, showing a wide variety of sexual activities, sometimes accompanied by humorous or erotic poetry. Pillow books were considered a private pleasure, shared between lovers or used as inspiration for intimate moments. While these texts are seen today as a reflection of Japan's cultural openness toward sexuality, they were also an expression of creativity and intimacy in ancient Japanese society. Queen Victoria's libido. Despite her public image as a prim and proper monarch, Queen Victoria had a healthy sexual appetite. She was deeply in love with her husband, Prince Albert, and the two were known to be very passionate. Victoria even kept detailed diaries about their intimate life, writing about how much she enjoyed their encounters. After Albert's death, Victoria mourned him deeply, and though she never remarried, she reportedly kept a plaster cast of his hand and a lock of his hair as tokens of their love. Her private passion stands in stark contrast to the prudish reputation of the Victorian era. The sex Olympians of ancient Greece. The ancient Greeks were known for their open attitudes towards sex, but few things were as competitive as their sexual prowess. Wealthy Greek men would sometimes host private games similar to the Olympics, but with a twist. These games involved erotic contests. Participants would engage in sexual endurance challenges, where the goal was to see who could perform the longest or the most creatively in bed. Winners of these contests were lavished with gifts and celebrated as heroes of pleasure. While not widely documented, these erotic games reflect how deeply intertwined sex and competition were in ancient Greek culture. The preacher's passion for porn. In the 17th century, Reverend Robert Irvine of England shocked his congregation by being caught with an extensive collection of erotic art. Irvine, a fiery preacher known for his sermons about the sins of lust, secretly indulged in the very vice he condemned. His collection included scandalous engravings of sexual acts, which were extremely rare and expensive at the time. When his collection was discovered, it caused a scandal that rocked his small community. The hypocrisy of the preacher was a reflection of the often hidden desires that even the most pious could not escape, revealing the complexity of human sexuality. The French court's cuckold parties. In 18th century France, the court of Louis XV was notorious for its debauchery. One particular form of entertainment was the cuckold party, where noblemen would deliberately engage in extramarital affairs in front of their peers. These parties involved games and wagers, with courtiers placing bets on who would be caught in the act first. The king himself was rumored to have participated in these events, which were considered a way to flaunt power and status. The French aristocracy's shameless indulgence in such affairs contributed to the public's growing resentment, which eventually led to the French Revolution. Masturbation madness. In the 18th and 19th centuries, masturbation was viewed as a dangerous and immoral act. Doctors and moralists believed that it could lead to madness, physical decay, and even death. Some parents went to extreme lengths to prevent their children from engaging in self-pleasure, using painful devices like spiked rings or chastity belts. Kellogg's cornflakes were even invented as a bland food to reduce sexual desire. The hysteria surrounding masturbation was largely driven by religious and social anxieties about controlling human sexuality, reflecting the deep fear of sexual autonomy in a repressive society.